The sun was setting over New York City, casting a golden glow across the skyline. At JFK Airport, passengers hurried through terminals, dragging suitcases and clutching boarding passes. Among them was Captain Ryan Mitchell, a tall man in his mid-40s with graying temples and sharp blue eyes. He wore his navy blue uniform proudly, its gold stripes glinting under the fluorescent lights. For 15 years, Ryan had flown planes for Skylink Airlines, earning a reputation as one of their most reliable pilots. Today's flight, Flight 872 from New York to Los Angeles, was supposed to be routine. The Boeing 737 was scheduled to leave at 6:30 p.m., carrying 150 passengers eager to reach their destinations. Ryan had already completed his pre-flight checks and was standing near the gate, chatting casually with Lisa Bennett, a junior PR representative assigned to oversee customer relations on this trip. Lisa was young, barely in her late 20s, with curly brown hair tied back into a neat ponytail. She admired Ryan's calm demeanor and often sought advice from him about handling difficult situations. As boarding began, everything seemed normal. Families with children, business travelers in suits, and tourists with oversized backpacks filed onto the plane. But just as the last few passengers were being seated, a commotion erupted near the gate. A woman in an expensive white coat stormed toward the counter, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. Her name was Mia Carter, and she looked furious. Mia was in her early 30s, with perfectly styled hair and makeup that screamed wealth and privilege. She carried herself with confidence, her designer handbag swinging slightly as she approached the gate agent. "I can't believe this," she snapped, her voice rising above the hum of conversations around her. "You told me I'd have first class. Why am I not on the manifest?" The gate agent, a nervous young man named Kevin, stammered as he tried to explain. "Miss Carter, I'm so sorry, but we had to bump some passengers due to overbooking. Your seat has been moved to economy." "Economy?" Mia repeated, her tone dripping with disbelief. "Do you know who I am? Do you even realize what kind of customer I am to this airline?" Kevin swallowed hard, clearly uncomfortable. "We'll do our best to make it right, ma'am. Perhaps we could offer you an upgrade on your return flight." "I don't want an upgrade on my return flight," Mia interrupted, cutting him off. "I want my first-class seat now. Fix this immediately." Ryan watched the scene unfold from a distance, his arms crossed over his chest. He didn't like conflicts, especially ones involving entitled passengers. Still, he knew better than to interfere unless absolutely necessary. Pilots weren't meant to deal with customer complaints. That was the job of the ground staff and cabin crew. But something about Mia's attitude made him uneasy. There was a sense of entitlement in her voice that went beyond frustration. It felt almost calculated. After several minutes of heated back and forth, Kevin finally managed to placate Mia by promising to find her a better seat in economy. Reluctantly, she grabbed her boarding pass and headed toward the plane, muttering under her breath. As she passed Ryan, she shot him a glare, as if daring him to say something. He met her gaze briefly before turning away, deciding it wasn't worth engaging. Once on board, Mia settled into her assigned seat in row 15, which happened to be next to a window. She immediately started complaining to the flight attendant, a cheerful woman named Samantha. "This is unacceptable," Mia said, gesturing toward the cramped space around her. "First class is practically empty and you're sticking me here? What kind of service is this?" Samantha smiled politely, though her patience was wearing thin. "I understand your frustration, Ms. Carter, but there's nothing I can do at this point. All the first-class seats are occupied." "Well, maybe someone else should give up theirs," Mia suggested, raising her voice loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Surely there's someone willing to trade?" Samantha shook her head firmly. "That's not how it works, ma'am. Once the plane is boarded, seating assignments are final." Mia huffed and crossed her arms, sinking deeper into her seat. She pulled out her phone and began typing furiously, likely venting her anger on social media. Meanwhile, Ryan prepared the cockpit for departure, unaware of the storm brewing just a few rows behind him. Minutes later, as the plane taxied toward the runway, Mia suddenly unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. Ignoring the safety announcement instructing passengers to remain seated, She marched toward the front of the aircraft. Passengers stared in confusion as she approached the closed cockpit door. "What does she think she's doing?" one man whispered to his wife. Before anyone could react, Mia knocked loudly on the cockpit door. Inside, Ryan heard the sound and frowned. Procedures dictated that no one, not even VIP passengers, was allowed near the cockpit during critical phases of flight. He opened the door slightly, peering out to see what was going on. "Can I help you?" Ryan asked, his voice calm but firm. "This is ridiculous," Mia declared, pointing back toward her seat. "I refuse to sit there. You need to fix this." Ryan blinked, taken aback by her audacity. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. We're about to take off, and federal regulations prohibit unauthorized access to the cockpit." "I don't care about your regulations," Mia shot back, stepping closer. "If you won't move me to first class, then I demand to speak to whoever's in charge." Ryan felt a surge of irritation. He understood that delays and inconveniences could upset people, but Mia's behavior crossed a line. "Ms. Carter," he said, keeping his tone measured, "you're disrupting the safety of this flight. Please go back to your seat immediately." Instead of complying, Mia reached out, trying to push past him into the cockpit. Instinctively, Ryan raised his arm to block her, causing her to stumble backward. Gasps filled the cabin as passengers witnessed the altercation. Mia caught herself against the wall, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you touch me?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with rage. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "Yes, ma'am," Ryan replied, his jaw tightening. "And I assure you I'm only doing my job." With visible effort, Mia composed herself and stormed back to her seat, fuming silently. The rest of the flight proceeded without further incident, but the tension lingered in the air like static electricity. Little did Ryan know, this encounter would soon spiral far beyond anything he could have imagined. For now, however, all he could focus on was getting the plane safely to Los Angeles. As the wheels lifted off the runway, Ryan glanced at the horizon, wondering if he'd made the right decision. By the time Flight 872 touched down in Los Angeles, the altercation between Ryan Mitchell and Mia Carter had already begun to ripple outward. Passengers disembarked quickly, many of them whispering about what they had witnessed. Some were sympathetic to Ryan, praising him for standing his ground and protecting the cockpit. Others sided with Mia, calling his actions excessive and unnecessary. But everyone agreed on one thing: this wasn't going to end quietly. As soon as Mia stepped off the plane, she pulled out her phone and started recording a video. Her face was still flushed with anger, but now it carried an air of calculated outrage. "Let me tell you what just happened," she said, speaking directly into the camera. "I was bumped from first class because of some ridiculous overbooking error, and when I tried to address the situation, the pilot physically assaulted me. Yes, you heard that right. He shoved me. And all I wanted was a resolution." The video went live within minutes, spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. Comments poured in, ranging from supportive messages for Mia to accusations that she was exaggerating the story. One passenger uploaded their own footage of the incident, showing Mia attempting to enter the cockpit and Ryan pushing her away. The clip quickly racked up millions of views, sparking heated debates online. Ryan, meanwhile, had no idea how fast the story was spreading. After completing his post-flight duties, he headed to the crew lounge to relax before catching a ride home. It wasn't until Lisa Bennett rushed in, her face pale and her phone buzzing nonstop, that he realized something was wrong. "Ryan, have you seen this?" Lisa asked, holding up her phone. On the screen was Mia's video, accompanied by headlines like "Pilot Assaults Passenger Over Seat Dispute" and "Skylink Pilot Loses Temper with Wealthy Tech Mogul." Ryan stared at the screen, his stomach sinking. "That's not what happened," he said firmly. "She was trying to force her way into the cockpit during takeoff. I couldn't let her do that. It's against every rule we have." "I know," Lisa replied, her voice trembling. "But no one else does. People are eating this up and it's not looking good for you." Word of the incident reached Skylink Airlines' headquarters within hours. Harold Carter, Mia's father and the CEO of the company, called an emergency meeting with senior executives. A tall man in his late 60s with silver hair and a commanding presence. Harold listened silently as his team briefed him on the situation. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "This is a mess," he said finally. "My daughter doesn't always handle things gracefully, but assaulting a passenger? That's unacceptable. We need damage control, now." Harold decided to suspend Ryan pending an investigation, citing the need to maintain public trust. The decision hit Ryan hard. He had dedicated nearly 2 decades of his life to Skylink, always putting safety first. Now he found himself painted as the villain in a narrative he barely recognized. The next morning, Mia held a press conference outside her Los Angeles penthouse. Dressed in a sleek black suit, she addressed reporters with practiced poise. "What happened on that flight was not just about a seat upgrade," she declared. "It was about respect, or the lack thereof. As a black woman in business, I've faced discrimination my entire life. This incident is yet another example of how people, in positions of power, try to silence those who challenge the status quo." Her words resonated with many, especially given her background as a self-made billionaire known for breaking barriers in the tech industry. Social media lit up with hashtags like Justice for Mia and the Respect Black Women, amplifying her message. Critics of the aviation industry seized the opportunity to highlight systemic issues, accusing airlines of prioritizing profit over passenger dignity. For Ryan, the backlash was overwhelming. His phone rang constantly with calls from friends, colleagues, and even strangers offering both support and condemnation. News outlets camped outside his modest suburban home, shoving microphones in his face whenever he stepped outside. At first, he tried to ignore them, hoping the storm would pass. But as days turned into weeks, the pressure mounted. Lisa became Ryan's unofficial ally during this chaotic time. She spent countless hours researching the specifics of the incident, gathering statements from passengers and crew members who had been on the flight. Many of them corroborated Ryan's version of events, describing Mia as aggressive and unreasonable. Lisa compiled these accounts into a report, hoping to present them to Skylink's leadership. One evening, after another exhausting day of avoiding reporters, Ryan invited Lisa over for dinner. They sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by papers and notes detailing the case. "I don't understand why she's doing this," Ryan admitted, running a hand through his graying hair. "I didn't hurt her, I was just doing my job." "I think it's bigger than you," Lisa replied thoughtfully. "Mia's built her brand around being a disruptor. Maybe this is her way of staying relevant." Ryan frowned. "So I'm just collateral damage?" "Unfortunately, yes," Lisa said. "But we can fight back. If we expose the truth, people will see her for who she really is." Determined to clear his name, Ryan agreed to participate in a televised interview organized by Lisa. Sitting under bright studio lights, he recounted the events of that fateful flight with quiet conviction. "I took an oath to protect my passengers," he explained. "When Ms. Carter tried to enter the cockpit, I had no choice but to stop her. It wasn't personal. It was about keeping everyone safe." His sincerity struck a chord with viewers. Calls and emails flooded Skylink's customer service line, urging the airline to reconsider its stance. Even some of Mia's supporters began to question her motives, wondering if she had manipulated the situation for publicity. Behind the scenes, tensions escalated between Mia and her father. Harold confronted her in his office, demanding answers. "Did you provoke that pilot on purpose?" he asked bluntly. "Because if you did, you've put this company in a very difficult position." Mia bristled at his tone. "Of course not. He pushed me, Dad. Or are you saying I deserved it?" "No, I'm saying you're smart enough to know how to spin a story," Harold countered. "And if you use this incident to boost your profile, I won't tolerate it." Their argument ended without resolution, leaving both parties frustrated. For Mia, the stakes were higher than ever. If her father discovered she had orchestrated the drama, her carefully crafted image could crumble. For Ryan, the battle was far from over. But for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. As the days passed, the tide began to turn. Journalists dug deeper into Mia's past, uncovering instances where she had clashed with authority figures or demanded special treatment. One former employee came forward, alleging that Mia had threatened legal action after being denied access to restricted areas of another airline's terminal. While none of these incidents proved definitive, they cast doubt on her credibility. Ryan continued to focus on clearing his name, leaning on Lisa for support. Together, they pieced together evidence that painted a fuller picture of what had truly happened aboard Flight 872. Slowly but surely, the narrative shifted from a story of alleged assault to one of professionalism versus privilege. As the days stretched into weeks, Ryan Mitchell and Lisa Bennett worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind Mia Carter's actions. The pressure on Ryan had eased slightly after his televised interview, but the public was still divided. Some people believed him, while others clung to Mia's version of events. For Ryan, the key to clearing his name lay in exposing Mia's hidden motives. Lisa spent hours combing through news articles, social media posts, and corporate records related to Mia. She knew that if they could find proof of a pattern, moments, where Mia manipulated situations for personal gain, they might be able to shift the narrative in Ryan's favor. One evening, while scrolling through an online forum for former employees of tech startups, Lisa stumbled upon a thread titled, "Working with Mia Carter, a Nightmare." Intrigued, she clicked on it and began reading. The comments were eye-opening. Dozens of people shared stories about Mia's volatile behavior in professional settings. One user wrote, "She once threatened to sue our company because we wouldn't give her access to private data servers. It was ridiculous, but she got what she wanted anyway." Another added, "Mia always plays the victim when things don't go her way. She uses her money and connections to bully people into submission." Lisa forwarded the thread to Ryan, who read it with growing frustration. "This is exactly what I've been saying," he muttered. "She doesn't care about rules or fairness, she just wants control." Encouraged by these findings, Lisa decided to dig deeper. She reached out to some of the commenters, asking if they'd be willing to share more details. To her surprise, several agreed to talk. One man, a former project manager at one of Mia's companies, revealed something startling. Mia had a habit of staging controversies to generate buzz around her products. She did it all the time, the man explained over the phone. Whenever she launched a new app or service, there'd be some kind of scandal involving her. It kept her name in the headlines, and people ate it up. They didn't care if she was right or wrong. They just cared that she was relevant. Lisa scribbled notes furiously as he spoke. If this was true, then the incident on Flight 872 might not have been spontaneous at all. It could have been part of a larger plan to promote whatever Mia was working on next. Determined to confirm their suspicions, Ryan and Lisa turned their attention to Mia's latest venture. Through research, they discovered that she was preparing to launch a controversial app called SkySwap, a platform designed to allow passengers to bid for seat upgrades in real time. The app had already drawn criticism from industry experts, who argued that it would disrupt traditional booking systems and create chaos for airlines. "Think about it," Lisa said during one of their late-night brainstorming sessions. If Mia wanted to drum up interest in SkySwap, what better way than to claim she was mistreated by an airline? People would see her as the underdog fighting against big corporations, even though she's worth billions. Ryan nodded slowly, piecing it all together. So she picked a fight with me. Not because she cared about first class, but because she knew it would make headlines. With this theory in mind, they set out to gather concrete evidence. Lisa tracked down interviews Mia had given in the months leading up to the flight. In one podcast episode, Mia hinted at making a bold move to challenge the aviation industry. "I'm tired of outdated systems holding us back," she declared. "It's time for change, and I'm ready to shake things up." The timing lined up perfectly. Just days before boarding Flight 872, Mia had announced the official release date for SkySwap. Coincidence? Ryan and Lisa didn't think so. Their breakthrough came when Lisa managed to get in touch with a disgruntled former employee of Mia's marketing team. The woman, who wished to remain anonymous, confirmed that Mia had instructed her team to create scenarios that would provoke strong emotional reactions from the public. She called it controlled chaos, the woman explained. Her exact words were, "Sometimes you need to stir the pot to get people talking." Armed with this information, Ryan and Lisa realized they had enough to take their case to the media. But they needed to act carefully. Exposing Mia's tactics without solid proof could backfire, painting them as conspiracy theorists rather than truth seekers. They approached a trusted investigative journalist named Daniel Cruz, who had a reputation for thorough reporting. After reviewing their findings, Daniel agreed to look into the matter further. He conducted his own interviews, cross-referencing statements from Mia's past employees with internal documents leaked anonymously to Lisa. Slowly but surely, a clearer picture emerged. Meanwhile, Mia continued to play the role of the aggrieved passenger, appearing on talk shows and granting exclusive interviews. She spoke passionately about systemic biases in the aviation industry, positioning herself as a champion for marginalized voices. Her supporters rallied behind her, praising her courage and resilience. However, cracks began to form in her carefully constructed facade. One particularly damning revelation came when Daniel uncovered emails between Mia and her PR team, discussing strategies to maximize media coverage of the incident. In one message, Mia explicitly mentioned using the altercation with Ryan to build momentum for SkySwap's launch. "People love a good villain," she wrote. "Let's make sure Captain Mitchell fits the bill." When Daniel published his exposé, the response was explosive. Readers were shocked by the extent of Mia's manipulation, questioning whether she had ever been sincere about her grievances. Social media erupted with debates, hashtags like #Mia Exposed trending alongside renewed calls for justice for Ryan. Skylink Airlines found itself caught in the middle of the controversy. Harold Carter, Mia's father, and the CEO of the company, faced mounting pressure from shareholders and customers alike. He called another emergency meeting, this time inviting Ryan and Lisa to present their side of the story. Sitting across from Harold in his sleek office, Ryan recounted the events of the flight in detail, emphasizing his commitment to safety protocols. Lisa followed up by presenting the evidence they had gathered, including screenshots of Mia's emails and testimonies from former employees. Harold listened intently, his expression unreadable. When they finished, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "You've given me a lot to think about," he said finally. "But understand this. If I side with you, it won't just affect my daughter. It will affect this entire company." Ryan met his gaze steadily. "I understand, sir. All I want is for the truth to come out." The decision weighed heavily on Harold. On one hand, protecting his daughter meant preserving her image, and by extension, his legacy. On the other hand, ignoring the facts risked alienating loyal employees like Ryan and damaging Skylink's reputation. After a long pause, Harold sighed deeply. "I'll issue a formal apology," he said at last. "And I'll reinstate you, Captain Mitchell, but this isn't over. Not for any of us." For Ryan, the announcement felt like a victory, albeit a bittersweet one. While he was grateful to have his job back, he couldn't shake the feeling that the battle had changed him. He had always believed in doing the right thing, but now he understood how easily truth could be twisted by those with power. As the dust settled, Ryan returned to work, greeted warmly by colleagues who admired his perseverance. Lisa earned recognition for her role in uncovering the truth, earning a promotion to senior PR representative. Together, they vowed to advocate for greater transparency within the airline industry. Mia, however, retreated from the spotlight. Though she remained wealthy, her reputation suffered irreparable damage. Critics dismissed SkySwap as a gimmick, and investors grew wary of associating with someone whose ethics were questionable at best. In the end, the incident served as a reminder of the importance of integrity, even when faced with overwhelming odds. For Ryan Mitchell, it was a lesson he would carry with him for the rest of his career. Months passed and life began to settle into a new rhythm for Ryan Mitchell. The controversy surrounding Mia Carter faded from the headlines, replaced by other stories that captured the public's attention. Yet its impact lingered in subtle ways, both for Ryan personally and for Skylink Airlines as a whole. The incident had become a turning point, not just for those directly involved, but also for the broader aviation industry. Ryan returned to his routine with renewed purpose. Flying was no longer just a job. It was a calling he embraced with even greater dedication. Passengers often recognized him during boarding, offering words of encouragement or gratitude. Some shared their own stories of standing up for what they believed in, inspired by how Ryan had handled the situation with Mia. These moments reminded him that his actions had resonated far beyond the confines of Flight 872. At Skylink Airlines, Harold Carter continued to push for reforms aimed at fostering transparency and accountability. Under his leadership, the company introduced stricter guidelines for handling complaints and disputes, ensuring that employees were empowered to enforce safety protocols without fear of retaliation. Training programs emphasized empathy and professionalism, equipping staff to navigate challenging situations with confidence. The changes earned praise from industry experts, who hailed Skylink as a model for modern airline management. For Lisa Bennett, her promotion to senior PR representative opened doors she hadn't imagined. Her role expanded to include advising other airlines on crisis communication strategies, allowing her to make a meaningful impact across the industry. She remained close to Ryan, often joining him for coffee after long days at work. Their friendship deepened over shared experiences, and though neither spoke about it openly, there was an unspoken understanding between them, a bond forged through trust and mutual respect. Mia Carter, meanwhile, struggled to reclaim her place in the spotlight. Despite her efforts to rebrand herself, skepticism followed her wherever she went. Investors grew cautious, wary of associating with someone whose reputation had been tarnished. Even her attempts to pivot to new ventures met with limited success. While she maintained a loyal following among certain circles, her influence waned significantly compared to her peak years. Still, Mia refused to fade into obscurity. She channeled her frustration into launching a podcast called Challenging Norms, where she interviewed entrepreneurs and innovators pushing boundaries in various fields. Though the show gained moderate traction, it lacked the explosive popularity of her earlier projects. Critics noted that her tone had softened, perhaps reflecting a shift in perspective, or simply a calculated move to win back public favor. One evening, as Ryan prepared for yet another flight, he received an unexpected visitor at the gate. It was Harold Carter himself, dressed casually in slacks and a blazer. He approached Ryan with an outstretched hand, his expression warm but tinged with regret. "Captain Mitchell," Harold said, his voice steady, "I wanted to thank you personally for everything. You've shown remarkable integrity throughout this ordeal, and I'm grateful for your commitment to Skylink." Ryan shook his hand firmly, surprised by the gesture. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I appreciate your support." Harold nodded, glancing around at the bustling terminal. "You know, running a business isn't easy. Balancing personal relationships with professional responsibilities, it's a delicate dance. But sometimes, you have to do what's right, even when it's hard." Ryan understood the weight behind those words. Harold wasn't just talking about the decisions he'd made regarding Mia and the airline. He was acknowledging the complexities of leadership and family loyalty. For a moment, the two men stood silently, united by a shared understanding of sacrifice and duty. As Harold walked away, Ryan felt a sense of closure. The tension that had once loomed over every interaction with Skylink's CEO dissipated, replaced by mutual respect. It was a reminder that people could grow and change, even in the face of adversity. Later that night, as the plane cruised at 35,000 feet, Ryan reflected on how far he'd come. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, anger, and exhaustion, but it had taught him valuable lessons. He learned that standing up for what's right often comes at a cost, but it's a price worth paying. More importantly, he realized that true strength lies not in avoiding conflict, but in facing it head-on with honesty and courage. Lisa joined him in the cockpit during a quiet stretch of the flight, bringing a thermos of hot tea. "How's it going?" she asked, handing him a cup. "Smooth sailing," Ryan replied with a smile. "Just thinking about everything that's happened." I think we've both grown a lot, Lisa admitted, sipping her tea. This whole thing changed us, didn't it? It did, Ryan agreed. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. We came out stronger because of it. They sat in companionable silence, watching the stars twinkle against the dark expanse of sky. For Ryan, these moments were precious. A chance to pause and appreciate the beauty of flight, the freedom of the open skies. They reminded him why he had chosen this path in the first place. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, Ryan stepped, off feeling lighter than he had in months. Passengers filed past, some nodding in acknowledgement, others lost in their own worlds. Among them was a young boy clutching a toy airplane, his eyes wide with wonder as he gazed up at Ryan. "Are you really a pilot?" the boy asked, tugging on his sleeve. "I sure am," Ryan replied, crouching down to meet his gaze. "And maybe someday you'll be one too." The boy grinned, clearly thrilled by the idea. As Ryan straightened and continued toward the terminal, he couldn't help but smile. Moments like these reaffirmed his belief in the power of inspiration and the importance of leading by example. Back at headquarters, Lisa worked late into the night, drafting a report on Skylink's recent initiatives. Her desk was cluttered, with notes and charts, evidence of her tireless efforts to improve the airline's practices. Though the hours were long, she found satisfaction in knowing that her work made a difference. Every policy change, every training session brought them closer to creating a safer, fairer environment for everyone. As dawn broke over the city, casting golden light across the skyline, Ryan climbed aboard another plane, ready to take to the skies once more. Behind him, Lisa packed up her things, heading home to rest before starting anew the next day. Together, they represented resilience, the ability to rise above challenges and emerge stronger on the other side. In the distance, Mia Carter sat, in her penthouse office, staring out at the horizon. The world had moved on, leaving her to chart a new course. Whether she would succeed remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. She had learned that power without integrity is fleeting. For Ryan Mitchell, however, the future was bright. With each flight, he carried not just passengers but also hope, a reminder that even in turbulent times there is always a way forward. And as the plane ascended into the clouds, he felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that he had done his part to keep the skies safe and the spirit of adventure alive. The fallout from the exposé was swift and merciless. Mia Carter, once celebrated as a trailblazer in the tech world, found herself at the center of a storm she couldn't control. The emails leaked by Daniel Cruz painted her as manipulative and self-serving, qualities that clashed sharply with the image she had worked so hard to cultivate. For the first time in her career, Mia faced consequences she couldn't buy or negotiate her way out of. Harold Carter's decision to side with Ryan Mitchell marked a turning point, not just for Skylink Airlines, but also for his relationship with his daughter. When Harold made the announcement during a press conference, his tone was firm yet tinged with regret. "As CEO of this company, I must prioritize integrity above all else," he said, standing behind a podium emblazoned with the Skylink logo. "While my daughter is entitled to her opinions, the evidence presented to me leaves no room for doubt. Captain Mitchell acted within his rights to ensure the safety of his passengers." The statement sent shockwaves through the media. Supporters of Mia scrambled to defend her, accusing Harold of throwing her under the bus to protect his airline. Critics, however, praised him for taking a stand against nepotism and favoritism. For Ryan, the apology meant vindication. He listened to the press conference from home, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. Lisa sat beside him, clutching a cup of coffee as they watched Harold deliver the news. "I never thought it would come to this," Ryan admitted, shaking his head. "I just wanted to do my job." "And you did," Lisa replied, offering him a small smile. "You stood your ground when it mattered most. That takes courage." Despite the victory, Ryan couldn't shake the lingering unease. He knew the fight wasn't over, not entirely. While Mia's reputation had taken a hit, she still wielded significant influence. Her wealth and connections ensured that she wouldn't disappear quietly. If anything, Ryan suspected she might retaliate in ways they couldn't predict. Meanwhile, Mia struggled to salvage what remained of her public image. She canceled appearances on talk shows and deleted her social media accounts, retreating into seclusion. Friends and business associates distanced themselves, wary of being associated with someone whose ethics were now under scrutiny. Even her own marketing team abandoned her, citing irreconcilable differences. Behind closed doors, Mia raged at anyone who dared question her actions. "You don't understand," she shouted during one particularly heated phone call with a former colleague. "This isn't about me. It's about changing the system. Why can't people see that?" Her words fell on deaf ears. The narrative had shifted too far in Ryan's favor, and Mia's attempts to frame herself as a victim of corporate bias rang hollow. Public opinion had turned decisively against her, leaving her isolated and bitter. At Skylink Airlines, Harold implemented sweeping changes to prevent similar incidents in the future. He introduced stricter policies regarding passenger behavior, emphasizing zero tolerance for breaches of cockpit security. Employees received additional training on conflict resolution, while executives were encouraged to lead by example rather than privilege. These reforms earned widespread praise from both staff and customers, reinforcing Skylink's commitment to professionalism and accountability. For Ryan, returning to work felt like stepping into a new chapter. Passengers greeted him warmly, many thanking him for standing up for safety standards. Flight attendants expressed their gratitude, acknowledging the pressure he had endured during the investigation. Even Kevin, the nervous gate agent who had initially dealt with Mia, approached Ryan to apologize for not handling the situation better. "It's okay," Ryan assured him, patting him on the shoulder. "We're all human. What matters is that we learn from our mistakes." Lisa, too, found herself thriving in her new role as senior PR representative. Her efforts to clear Ryan's name had earned her respect across the company, and she embraced the opportunity to advocate for transparency and fairness. Together, Ryan and Lisa became unofficial spokespeople for Skylink's renewed focus on ethical practices. But amidst the progress, there were moments of tension. One evening, as Ryan prepared for another flight, he received an anonymous letter, slipped under his office door. The handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. Watch your back." Ryan stared at the note, his heart pounding. Was it a threat? A warning? Or simply the ramblings of someone trying to stir trouble? He showed it to Lisa, who immediately urged him to report it to security. Though nothing came of the letter, it served as a reminder that not everyone had moved on from the controversy. Mia, for her part, began plotting her comeback. Unable to rely on her usual tactics of manipulation and intimidation, she turned to a more subtle approach: rebranding. She hired a new PR team to craft a narrative portraying her as a misunderstood innovator who had been unfairly targeted by powerful institutions. In carefully worded statements, she claimed that the expose was part of a smear campaign orchestrated by rivals in the aviation industry. "It's easy to demonize someone who challenges the status quo," she told a select group of journalists during a private luncheon. "But history remembers those who dare to push boundaries. I refuse to let fear silence me." Her words resonated with some, particularly younger entrepreneurs, eager to disrupt traditional systems. Slowly but surely, Mia began rebuilding her network, attending exclusive events and securing partnerships with smaller tech companies. Though her app, SkySwap, failed to gain traction, she pivoted to other ventures, determined to stay relevant. Back at Skylink, Ryan focused on moving forward. Each flight reminded him why he had chosen this career: to connect people, to explore new horizons, and to uphold the highest standards of safety. He took pride in knowing that his actions had sparked meaningful change within the airline industry, even if the cost had been high. One day, as he prepared for takeoff on yet another routine flight, Ryan glanced out the cockpit window. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the runway. For a moment, he allowed himself to reflect on everything that had happened: the confrontation with Mia, the media frenzy, the long road to redemption. It had been a difficult journey, but he emerged stronger and wiser. Beside him, Lisa sat in The jump seat, reviewing passenger manifests. Over the past few months, their partnership had deepened into a genuine friendship. They shared a bond forged through adversity, one that neither of them took for granted. "You ready for this?" Lisa asked, breaking the silence. Ryan smiled, adjusting his headset. "Always." As the plane lifted off the ground, soaring toward the horizon, Ryan felt a sense of peace. The skies ahead were vast and unpredictable, but he trusted in his ability to navigate whatever challenges lay ahead. After all, he had faced storms before and come out flying.